Now, definition 4. What else do I have? Let f be a real valued function. C is called the point of local maxima. This is what I was talking about. We are going to look at if this is the maximum point, we'll look at some point which is over here, which is close to the point that we are looking for. அதை நம்ம எப்படி எடுக்க போறோம்? C plus h and C minus h. இப்போ h வந்து we have to look at point. இப்போ இந்த இடத்துல ஒரு point இருக்கு and this point is going to be 2. Okay, and there is a point 1 here and there is a point 3 here. What am I going to see? I'm going to see a point which is very, very close to 2. Which is going to be in the pakam 2.1 and in the pakam 0.9. So I'm going to find the value of f of 0.9 and f of 2.1. I see that rendume vandu idha vida lesser ah irukku podhu. So f of 0.9 is going to be less than f of 2 and f of 2.1 is also going to be less than f of 2, which means that this is the maximum function. So this is the point of local maxima. Same applies to local minima. I'm going to take a point which is very, very close to the point I need to check. I'm going to take that to be C minus h and C plus h. So this is called this is one of the methods to check what is your local minima and what is your local maxima. Okay. So the definition given here is going to be f of c is greater than or equal to f of x, and here the f of c is going to be less than or equal to f of x. Adha I explain panna. So local minima na that particular point is going to be the minimum value. Local maxima na f of c nama point kandupidikirolla, c is called the critical point. So adula kandupidikumbodhu if that is the highest value of all the f of x, it is going to be the local maxima. Highest maxima, lowest minima. Okay. Now theorem 2. Let f be a function defined on the open interval, which is closed circular brackets. Suppose c belongs to the interval. If f has a local maxima, local minima at c, then either f dash of c is 0 or f is not differentiable at c. Abdina anartham. F dash of c is going to be 0 na, f of c is not differentiable. If this is going to be some constant, you cannot differentiate this. Adnal da idu 0 nu varudhu. So f dash of c is 0 or f of c is not differentiable. Idu theorem. But you cannot say that f of c is not differentiable. Hence, it has local maxima. Abdinu solla mudiyadhu. அது வந்து local maxima, local minima இருந்ததுன்னா then f dash of c is 0, but the converse is not true. Okay, ஒரு பக்கம் தான் true, இன்னொரு பக்கம் true கிடையாது. Okay, the reverse is not true. Now, there is another thing called point of inflection. Okay, so for example, you have this particular curve where f of x equals x cube and the graph looks like this. Okay, so now I see that this point is 0, f of 0 is going to be 0. But is this the minimum point or the maximum point? Kadayadu. So there is, the curve is going down like this and up like this. This is going to be infinite. Infinite ah irukumbodhu இந்த பாயிண்ட்க்கு கீழே இந்த பாயிண்ட் இருக்கு. So this is not the local minima. This could be the local minima, but minima இல்ல. அதே மாதிரி இந்த பாயிண்ட் மேக்ஸிமம் கிடையாது, ஏன்னா இங்கே ஒரு பாயிண்ட் இருக்கலாம். So this kind of point where you know the value தெரியும், ஆனா அது மேக்ஸிமாவும் கிடையாது, மினிமாவும் கிடையாது. So that kind of point, we call it point of inflection. நமக்கு பாயிண்டே ஒன்னா இல்லாம போயிடலாம். Which means there is no maxima, no minima. ஏதோ ஒரு பாயிண்ட் தெரியுது, ஆனா அது மேக்ஸிமாவும் இல்ல, மினிமாவும் இல்ல. It is called point of inflection, which means it is of no use. ஒரு பிரயோஜனமும் கிடையாது, இருக்கு அவ்வளவுதான். Okay? Now, theorem 3. This is the first derivative test. இப்போ நமக்கு local maxima இருக்கா இல்லையான்னு எப்படி செக் பண்ண போறோம்? By using first derivative test. நம்ம இதுவும் பண்ண போறோம், second derivative testனு ஒன்று இருக்கு, அதுவும் பண்ண போறோம். Second derivative is very easy. First derivative is also easy, but கொஞ்சம் little bit you have to think. Okay? So let's see what happens. So basically, when I have a curve, இப்போ ஒரு graph இருக்கு. இப்போ இந்த graph எடுத்துப்போம். When I have this particular graph, here I see that if this is the point of maxima இருக்கு அப்படின்னா, I see that f dash of x is greater than 0 and f dash of x is less than 0. Okay, I have, if we are talking about the maximum point, how can we prove this? Left side la, I have f dash of x is greater than 0 and on the right side, I have f dash of x is less than 0, which means we are talking about the local maxima. புரிஞ்சுதா? இந்த இடத்துல இப்போ local maxima பத்தி நான் பேசுறேன்னா, left sideல it is like this and right sideல f dash of x is less than 0. இப்போ local minima, how do I see? Look at this graph B. Look at this particular graph. I see that if this is the point of local minima, then on the left I have, left la enna irukku, f dash of x is less than 0. It is a decreasing curve, correct? It is decreasing like this. So f dash of x is less than 0. On the right hand side, I have f dash of x is greater than 0. If this is the case, we are talking about local minima. Okay, so இதை நான் கிராஃபா போட்டேன்னா இந்த இடத்துல it is greater than 0, which means it is increasing on the right hand side. So இந்த பாயிண்ட்க்கு right hand sideல it is going to be less than 0, which means it's decreasing. So we are talking about local maxima. அதே மாதிரி இந்த இடத்துல I have f dash of x is less than 0, which means it is going to be decreasing. This is the point. On the right, this is going to be on the right. On the right, we have f dash of x is greater than 0, which means the curve is increasing. So this is the point of local minima. So this is what my first derivative test tells me. Okay, இங்க definition ல என்ன இருக்கு? F dash of x is greater than 0 to the left and f dash of x is less than 0 to the right. Then we call it the local maxima. Correct? Left ல greater than, right ல less than. We call it the local maxima. Okay, இங்கே எழுதிருக்கேன். So left ல greater than, right ல less than, we are talking about local maxima. Then similarly, second subsection, I have f dash of x is less than 0 on the left. So less than 0 on the left and right hand side ல greater than 0 on the right. So greater than 0 on the right, we are talking about local minima. Okay, இது எல்லாமே with respect to the point C that is here. So இங்கே ஒரு C இருக்கு, இங்கே ஒரு point C இருக்கு. So we are talking about with respect to point C. Okay, now we discussed about local maxima and minima. There is also called a point of non-differentiability. இப்போ இந்த இடத்துலலாம் வந்து இப்படி curve போதா? So I have f dash of x is greater than 0, f dash of x is less than 0 லாம் இருக்கு. But இந்த இடத்துல I see that it is not a curve. I do not have a tangent like this. இப்போ இந்த curve இருக்கிறதுனால தான் இந்த இடத்துல tangent இருக்கு. But here I cannot have a tangent. கரெக்டா? So இந்த மாதிரி points எல்லாம் we call it the point of non-differentiability. But this is also one of the points of maxima. அதே மாதிரி இந்த இடத்துல it is one of the points of minima. Okay, so this is going to be my local maxima and local minima. Okay, we have not discussed yet about absolute maxima and absolute minima. அது அடுத்த டாபிக்ல டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணுவோம். We'll solve an example now. Example 70. Find all the points of local maxima and local minima of the function given by f of x equals x cube minus 3x plus 3. I'm going to find all the points of local maxima and local minima. Okay, so first என்ன பண்ண போறேன்? What is given? F of x equals x cube minus 3x plus 3. So first of all, I need to find what the critical points are. So I need to find the point C, and the point C and I have to first differentiate the function 3x square minus 3. When I take the 3 common, I have x square minus 1, which is going to be 3 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. So when I equate f dash of x to 0, I get x equals minus 1 and x equals 1. I have two different points and these are all my critical points. We call this critical points. Okay, now I have in my graph, in the f of x function oda graph la, I have two different points, minus 1 and 1. But I have to find out which point is the minimum point and which point is the maximum point. அதுக்கு first derivative test நான் use பண்ண போறேன். So I am going to use this particular theorem. You see definition 4 here. I am going to use this particular definition where இப்போ என்ன கண்டுபிடிக்க போறேன்? If this is going to be my point C1 and this is going to be my point C2. இப்போ C1க்கு நான் என்ன கண்டுபிடிக்க போறேன்? I have to see if f of C1 is greater than or equal to f of x, all the other points, then this is the local maxima. Or if f of C1 is less than or equal to f of x, in the point தான், then it is the local minima. Okay, இது C1 is the local maxima or C1 is the local minima. இதை நான் check பண்ணணும். I'm going to check for my first point. இப்போ x is equal to minus 1. I have to check for the value that is very very close to minus 1. இப்போ leftல என்ன value இருக்கு and rightல என்ன value இருக்கு? To the right of minus 1, I have minus 0.9 and to the left of minus 1, I have minus 1.1. So basically I'm doing C minus h and C plus h, where my C value is going to be minus 1, minus 0.1, minus 1, plus 0.1. Okay, I'm going to apply the theorem, this particular theorem, definition 4, where I have to check the nearest value, nearby values, இல்லையா minus 1க்கு. So when I do that, I'm going to substitute and find for f of minus 1.1 and f of minus 0.9. I have to check for two different values, whether it's greater than 0 or less than 0. இப்போ என்னோட f dash என்ன? this is going to be my f dash of x, which is 3 times x plus 1 into x minus 1. So when I substitute there, I have 3 times minus 1.1 plus 1 times minus 1.1 minus 1. And this is going to be 3 times minus 0.9 plus 1 times minus 0.9 minus 1. So what happens when I substitute these values? This is going to be positive and this is going to be a negative value and this is also going to be a negative value. Substituting in f dash of x, not f of x, when I substitute, I see that the overall function is going to be positive times negative, which is going to be greater than 0. So I have f dash of minus 1.1 is greater than 0. Adhe mari inge enna irukku? I have plus, this is going to be a plus and this is going to be a minus. So in the end, I have this is going to be less than 0. So f dash of minus 0.9 is less than 0. So here, the left hand side, I have f dash of x is going to be less than, f dash of x is going to be left hand side la, it is going to be greater than 0. And on the right hand side, f dash of x is going to be less than 0. Idu enge endu varudhu? Where is it coming from? When you check here, this is going to be local maxima. Left hand side la it is greater than 0. Right hand side la it's less than 0. Idu doubt vandaduna, how can you see in the point irukku? Left hand side la it's greater than 0. So it is increasing. Ipdi increase agudhu. Right hand side la it's less than 0. So it is decreasing. So we are talking about the point of local maxima. So minus 1 is the local maxima. Okay, இப்போ local minima எப்படி கண்டுபிடிக்க போறோம்? What is my next point? X is equal to 1. I'm going to take nearest points which are close to 1. So I have 0.9 and 1.1. Again, I have to do the same thing. F dash of 0.9 and f dash of 1.1. So when I substitute, I have 3 times. What is my f dash of x? 3 times x plus 1, x minus 1. So when I substitute, x plus 1 times x minus 1. This is one case and the other one is 0 times x plus 1. So 1.1 plus 1 times 1.1 minus 1. So what happens? This is going to be positive, positive, but this is negative. Positive, positive, positive. So I have f dash of 0.9 is less than 0. This is going to be negative. Yeah? Overall, it is going to be negative. And here I have f dash of 1.1 is greater than 0. So according to the diagram, left side la f dash of x is going to be less than 0. Right hand side, f dash of x is going to be greater than 0. From the point on the right hand side, it is going to be less than 0. So it is going to be a decreasing function. If this is the point, f dash of x is less than 0 na keela varudhu. So f dash of x is going to be less than 0 and on the right it's increasing. Correct? So f dash of x is going to be greater than 0. So this is called the point of local minima. So we have 1 is the local minima. Okay, so this is how you use the first derivative test to find which is the point of local minima and which is the point of local maxima. So first நம்ம என்ன பண்றோம்? Critical point என்னன்னு கண்டுபிடிக்கிறோம். Then we are going to check which is going to be a local minima and which is going to be the local maxima using the first derivative test. எப்படி பண்றோம்? By taking the values which are close to the critical points that we found out. அப்புறமா நம்மளோட ட்ரிக், லெஃப்ட் ஹேண்ட் சைடில் குறையுதா, ரைட் ஹேண்ட் சைடில் ஏறுதா, இல்லை லெஃப்ட் ஹேண்ட் சைடில் ஏறுதா, ரைட் ஹேண்ட் சைடில் குறையுதா. ஸோ விச் எவர் த கேசஸ் யூ ஃபைண்ட் அவுட் which is the local maxima and which is the local minima. Okay, now moving on to example 17. Find all the points of local maxima and local minima from the question. இப்போ நம்ம பண்ணதே தான் பண்ண போறோம். So what am I going to do? I have f of x equals 2x cube minus 6x square plus 6x plus 5. So when I find the derivative f dash of x, I have 6x square minus 12x plus 6. When I take 6 common, 6 times x square minus x plus 1. So this is going to be 6 times x minus 1 the whole square. So in that, what is my critical point? It is going to be 1. So I have x equals 1. So when I take a point which is close to 1, which is going to be 0.9 and 1.1, இப்போ f dash of x la substitute பண்ணா என்ன ஆகும்? When I substitute, f dash of 0.9 is going to be 6 times 0.9 minus 1 the whole square and f dash of 1.1 is going to be 6 times 1.1 minus 1 the whole square. இப்போ இந்த இடத்துல I'm getting a negative value and I'm getting a positive value here, but there is a square. இல்லையா? இப்போ நெகட்டிவ் வேல்யூ வந்தாலும் it is going to be greater than 0. பாசிட்டிவ் வேல்யூ வந்தாலும் it is going to be greater than 0. So in the left, f dash of x is greater than 0 and in the right, f dash of x is greater than 0, which means it is not decreasing at all. It is only increasing all the time. இப்போ இங்க point C இருக்குனா, it is only increasing and going like that. It is not coming down, which means this is not the point of local minima or this is not the point of local maxima. புரிஞ்சுதா? So there is no local minima or local maxima for this question. So no local minima or local maxima. புரிஞ்சுதா? Because on the left and the right, எதா ஒன்று ஆகணும்ல, ஒன்னா increase ஆச்சுனா decrease ஆகணும், leftல decrease ஆச்சுனா rightல increase ஆகணும். இங்க எதுவுமே ஆகல. It is only increasing all the time when my point 1 is here and point 0.9 is here and 1.1 is here. It is not coming down. It is only going up. So கீழே வந்ததுனால you can call it the local maxima. Correct? So this does not have any local minima or local maxima. Okay? So this is the first derivative test. Now let's move on to second derivative test. இதுதான் நம்ம நிறைய யூஸ் பண்ணுவோம். But in some cases second derivative test fail ஆயிடும். work ஆகாது. அப்ப நம்ம first derivative test தான் யூஸ் பண்ணுவோம். So always remember how to do first derivative test. It's very easy. Okay?